When War created his first 10 Warborn, he, just like his siblings, were each permitted to send a message to the families that had been chosen. War's message was clear, and this is what he spoke. You will be the chosen of War, but you will not be the chosen of chaos. Chaos may come during war. Destruction may come during war, but war is more than either of these things. You will bring peace through an understanding of strength through your actions, and if necessary, through blood. What you will not do is squander what has been given to you as a gift. You will produce the children of war, and those children will help hunt a great evil and save your world. Do this. Never forget who you are, and your bloodline will always be watched over and rewarded. Then the first families were given images of what was to come, and they were granted certain boons, and in the years that followed, many of those families produced numerous children. It soon became apparent that these children were different. When illness spread through a village, they rarely became sick. When other children struggled, they seemed to endure. They grew strong, capable, and remarkably aware of the world around them. But nothing could have prepared their families for what happened when they began reaching 13 to 16 years of age. One by one, they transformed. Children who had appeared human their entire lives suddenly became creatures nearly 3 times the size of an ordinary man. Even the smallest among them stood at least a foot taller than the largest warriors of the tribes, villages, and settlements in which they lived. Their first transformations were rarely graceful. They were confused, they were frightened, and without understanding what was happening to them, they reacted. Yet something remarkable happened. The warriors of those early communities did not simply turn their weapons upon these children. Instead, many taught them control. Their families remained beside them. Their communities learned alongside them. In time, many of these children were praised, respected, in some places nearly worshipped. They were stronger than those around them, faster, more difficult to injure. Their senses allowed them to perceive things others could not, and they seemed capable of understanding and reacting to their surroundings with astonishing speed. There were, of course, those who feared them, but for the most part, the children of war remained part of the communities into which they had been born. For nearly 500 years, this continued. Warborn lived beside humanity. They defended villages, raised families, fought beside human warriors, and became part of the cultures growing around them. But 500 years is a very long time. People change, kingdoms change, and gratitude is sometimes forgotten. Some Warborn began to find themselves pushed from the communities their ancestors had protected. Others were blamed when tragedy struck. Some were feared simply because of what they were. And perhaps worst of all, some were commanded to use their gifts to perform acts they considered reprehensible. Eventually, one Warborn decided that enough was enough. His name was Lochna. Lochna was already an older Warborn by this time. He had traveled across much of the known world and had spent a portion of his life searching for the great evil war had warned their ancestors about. During those travels, he encountered Warborn who had been cast out, abandoned, feared, or simply left without a place to call home. So Lochna began gathering them. What started as a collection of lost souls eventually became something more. A settlement was created, populated primarily by Warborn, but also by humans who chose to join them. It was not built merely as a refuge. Lochna wanted to create something that could endure. And with that settlement came a realization. The Warborn had been created to hunt a great evil, but what happened when that evil was gone? Would their purpose simply end? Lochna did not believe so. He came to believe that the children of war had been created for something greater. They were not meant to be beasts living within villages, waiting to be pointed toward whatever enemy another person wished destroyed. Their strength carried responsibility. If they possessed the power to stand against the great evil, then they also possessed the power to stand against the many smaller evils that threaten the people of their world. They could protect, they could intervene, and when necessary, they could fight. It was during these teachings that Lochna gave his people a name, Var'Raak. Var meant flame, carrying with it the idea of a spirit flame burning within them. Rak meant blood changed, a meaning that would eventually develop into blood transformed. Together, the words represented more than their ability to change shape. They represented what the children of war believed themselves to be. As the years passed, other settlements began following Lochna's teaching. What had begun as a refuge slowly became a culture, and that culture eventually became a living society. Lochna and several other respected leaders gathered to establish rules, laws, and traditions that could guide their people. From these teachings came the Var'Raak, the ways of the flame spirit. But as more settlements and tribes formed, another problem became apparent. Someone would be needed to stand between them. Not a king, not someone who controlled every tribe or commanded every leader. They needed someone capable of settling disputes between their people, maintaining peace among the tribes, and representing the Warborn when dealing with the other peoples of the world. The gathered leaders first turned to Lochna. He refused. Lochna explained that age had begun catching up with him. The person chosen for this responsibility needed strength, wisdom, and enough restraint to lead without feeling the need to control every decision made by those beneath him. And so another title entered Warborn history, the Continental Apex, also known as the High Claw. The first to carry that responsibility was Apex Bor'Raak. When Bor'Raak stood before the gathered tribes, he made his purpose clear. He had not been chosen to rule them. He had been chosen to serve between them. He would settle disputes when the tribes could not. He would work to preserve peace among the Warborn, and when necessary, between the Warborn and the other peoples who shared their world. For a time, the system worked. The scattered children of war had become something more. They had a name. They had traditions. They had laws. They had leaders. And slowly they had begun to understand that the greatest gift war had given them was not simply the ability to fight. It was the responsibility to know when to fight. This age would continue for quite some time, until the Great War. But that is a record for another day. For now, remember that this is only the beginning. The Warborn would change greatly over the thousands of years that followed, and not every descendant of those first bloodlines would carry the same form as their ancestors. In our next record, we will examine the different forms of Warborn that have appeared throughout the history of the Watched Earth: Var'Raak, Var'Run, Var'Pek, Var'Tak, and one form that should never have existed at all. Until then, this record is closed. Next record, the forms of the Warborn.